Hello everyone, Luciano Oliveira, Oliveira Lawyers. Today is Wednesday, November the 5th, 12:30 Rio de Janeiro time, and we are starting one more live stream. And as usual, if you want to have a topic of your interest discussed, let us know here in the chat window and we're going to address live. And to get started, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the news. And I think you're going to see some surprising news going on, or not so surprising, depending on your take on the situation. But here is the headline. Administration Trump is, offering support to the Rio de Janeiro governor, Castro, because of death of police officers in Rio de Janeiro. So for those of you who don't know, there was like a large, or better saying a huge police operation in some of the Rio de Janeiro hills to fight organized crime. And there was a huge number of casualties. There was 121 people dead, right? And most of these people, they had criminal records, and there was a lot of fighting, right? So it wasn't just like the police officers going into the hills. And there was actually a fierce battle between the criminals and the police officers, right? Now there is just like everywhere else, there is a lot of polarization. Okay, like the left side of the aisle is saying, well, there was an extreme use of force. The right side of the aisle is saying, listen, nobody has been doing anything against organized crime, and now that there is a governor who's fighting back, now you guys are complaining, right? So this is the ongoing discussion. But the interesting thing is that President Trump said, listen, if you guys need help, I'm here to help. Organized crime in Brazil is actually going international. I know it sounds like far-fetched, right? Like a president from the United States to offer help for an internal issue. But my take as a Brazilian is that, nowadays, organized crime is getting out of hand. Of course, like organized crime is always, bad, but it's getting to a scale that I have never seen in my whole life, right? And I am in my 50s, so I think, it does mean something that we have reached a peak in terms of organized crime, and those organizations, they are actually active nowadays outside of Brazil. Okay, so that's the main news sharing with you guys. And there was something else. It's not like a major news, but I think it is something so interesting that I wanted to share with you. It's about, this piece of news. This piece of news is from portal UOL, along with Folha de São Paulo. It is one of the largest news organizations in Brazil. And the news headline says, why this operation in Argentina, a neighbor country, has made the Gatonete, has disabled the Gatonete for thousands of Brazilians, right? So let's start with explaining what Gatonete means. Okay, so gato means cat, like the animal cat, and net is like how they address a TV cable, right? So here they're saying a TV cable that's not official, right? Or a TV cable that is pirate, that is like working outside of the providers. And this has been something, believe it or not, typical in Brazil. People would pay like for services that are not official to watch, like the usual channels that you have in mind, like, from Fox News to Cartoon Network, HBO, and everything in between. So the news here is that the command center for, again, this organized crime ring, it was based actually in Argentina. And in this piece of news, they explain why they chose Argentina, because of, affordable workforce, very good access to technology, and some other reasons, right? And maybe because it's not in Brazil. So if they're targeting Brazil, let's say the police force in Brazil is not easily accessing, the crime ring, right? But the thing is, like, there was a police operation in Argentina. They kind of found out about their command center. They dismantled the command center, and all of a sudden, like, I would say, they're talking about thousands of Brazilians. But if that's the main one, I can tell you, it could be easily a few million Brazilians who lost access. Okay, so that's the whole piece of news. But something that it also caught my attention, it's a couple of comments here, right? Like how people have different takes on a similar set of facts, or a single set of facts is going to give, room for people to have such a different interpretation. So the first one, and the most popular one, right, comment is saying, well, if the companies would charge, decent prices, there wouldn't be millions of Brazilians. And I agree, this is the number, it's not thousands, it's millions, right? Millions of Brazilians migrating to, pirate stuff. You pay for a basic package with, repeated movies, advertisements, just like, if you were not paying for a service, and you're paying over approximately $300 a year, right? And if you think about $300, you're talking about 50 US dollars a month, which is probably, the cost for a service package in the US. So it kind of makes sense, the number, but this person here is saying this, and this is outrageous, right? Like, I mean, it should be, I don't know, he would probably say it should be like 50 reais, right? Like $10 a month. And we know that $10 a month is not going to cut it, right? And then you have the second person here, the second person is saying, did I understand right? The person goes and sign up for a pirate service, and now they are complaining that they are not getting the service, right? That's another piece of information. Like, there are many people who are filing complaints against the pirate service, right? So I don't think anyone would sign the service without knowing it is something illegal. But just like, like a sign of how, interesting the Brazilian society is. Like, there are potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of people complaining about the pirate service, and they're seeking, like, the legal channels to complain about the pirate service, right? So very interesting piece of news that it does show the many contradictions that we have in Brazilian society. All right, so let's take a look. Let's take a look at our chat window. All right, chat window. We have a few comments over here. We have a Ken Hilliard. Can you use an Airbnb for a local address when applying for a retirement visa? Ken, yes. All right, so you can use an Airbnb address. Now, in some of the federal police stations, they are gonna ask you for more than just a letter from Airbnb, right? So Airbnb typically will issue like an automated letter saying, all right, this person is staying at this place, and then, the idea here is that you can use this letter for whatever purpose you have. But many federal police stations, they are not going to accept that. They say, listen, this is just like an electronic paper. I'm not going to accept that. Instead, they would ask you for a letter from the landlord, okay? And typically here at the firm, like when we are assisting our clients, we're going to be able to, basically just communicate with the landlord, the person who's putting this property out on Airbnb and say, listen, we have a client, he's staying with you for a couple of months or, many months, depending on the case. And now we're going to need a letter. And then we just provided the letter. The letter is very straightforward, right? We provide with a template. Landlord typically sees it and say, all right, like this guy is like renting my place for, a few months. I'm making, some bucks out of it. I don't see a problem in signing the letter. So the landlord will sign the letter, and typically we will ask the landlord to notarize the letter, and that's in Brazil, of course, right? That's the typical notarization, and then this letter is going to be fully compliant. All right, Ken. Ken is also asking, I get VA disability payments around 21 per month. Do I need to get my VA disability benefits letter apostilled? And if so, where would I get the letter apostilled? By the state government. All right, Ken. So these questions, they are becoming very specific. They are reaching to the level of, like a consultation, which we are unable to provide free of charge, right, as per the Brazilian Bar Association. So I'm just going to comment the things in general instead of asking your questions directly, just because they are reaching the point of becoming a personal consultation. All right. So in terms of, the retirement visa track. Okay, so typically when you file through a consulate, they're not going to ask for apostilles in general, because there is a variation in terms of standards among the consulates. The consulates, they don't have a standard or a single approach to reviewing immigration applications. So you should double check with your consulate, but in general, Brazilian consulates in the United States and abroad, they are not going to ask for an apostille. In Brazil, it's going to be the opposite. In Brazil, under the Brazil retirement residency, right? When you file through a consulate, it's called a visa. When you file in Brazil, it's called a residency. So Brazil retirement residency. When you're filing in Brazil, they're going to ask you an apostille for pretty much everything. Okay, for pretty much everything. And in terms of where you're going to go get the stuff that you need, the standard is typically that if you have a federal government, guess what? You should go to the federal government to have this document apostilled. Federal government is in Washington, D.C., through the Department of State. A very interesting note from yesterday, right? Like yesterday, I had a consultation. The person was asking, well, now with the shutdown, what is the impact on the apostille front? And then I spoke with our head of immigration. He said, listen, we don't have any issues so far, right? Which was kind of surprising to me. But there was probably our experience up to last week. So no impact up to now in terms of apostille services, all right? So federal document, go to Washington, D.C., get it done by the Department of State. If it is not a federal government, then you can have this done at the state level, right? So we have an office in Dallas. When we're dealing with apostilles at the state level, we typically try to do it in Austin, in which we have the Secretary of State for the state of Texas, right? And very interesting, depending on the state, then you call something else. So in Texas, is a Secretary of State. In New York, you also call it Department of State, right? So different flavors, same thing. All right, Ken, I hope you understand the limitation we have in terms of addressing the questions too specifically, but in general, I think the feedback that I'm giving you can help you, can point you in the right direction, right? All right, let's see what else. My girlfriend and I have a civil union that we did in Colombia over 2 years ago. Does Brazil immigration recognize civil unions for immigration purposes? So, Ken, yes, Brazil recognizes a civil union. Typically, they would like to see a civil union done in Brazil. If you have one from abroad, you could potentially authenticate this one and bring it to Brazil they are going to ask you for additional evidence, right? Just the civil union by itself is not enough for you to get the benefits. So they're going to ask you for additional stuff, such as like, a bank account or a joint bank account or a lease agreement, right? Showing both names or additional stuff. I think it was around June or July, there was a federal police operation against fraudsters on the civil union front, right? Like in Brazil, we call it União Estável, and there was a bunch of people who were like basically, simulating or pretending to be in a União Estável or kind of, common law marriage or civil union to acquire immigration rights. So there was a sting, and they were able to catch many lawyers, right? Lawyers, unfortunately, supporting the fraud, and they also went after the foreign citizens, defrauding the Brazilian government by pretending to be in a civil union. And this, of course, now this is in like, I would say this is in our kind of framework, right? Like, so whenever you show up with this kind of petition, like the police officers, they're going to remember about the stint. They're going to say, listen, like, is this legit or not? So typically this is going to face a much higher scrutiny than, different or other types of immigration tracks, if you will. Alexander, we use a similar service to watch Brazilian TV in the US. All right, Alexander. So yeah, Alexander, you know what? Like I have a friend of mine, right? Like, or a colleague, right? Like a colleague of mine, and he lives in Texas, and he uses such service, right? Like he pays like a small fee, and it is like really impressive, right? You have like literally hundreds of channels. So, when I was talking about the piece of news, I said it's a similar service to the one you have in the US. It is not. It is well beyond in terms of channels, because the so-called gatonete, which, by the way, it's a crime, right? Like you basically, using a service from a third party without paying the intellectual property, right? And you have channels not only from the United States, but pretty much from around the globe. So this guy was telling me, listen, we can watch actually, I think over 400 channels, and it was very impressive to me. And he was paying, I think, something around $10 a month, like 50 reais. I think that was the amount back then. All right, I see Matt again. It's good to see you, Matt. I hope you and Adrian are doing great. Ken, my girlfriend's sister lives in Manaus. Could we use her apartment for a local address? And what letter would that be? So again, trying to answer in general, Ken, you need to use the address in which you are living, right? It's not just a pro forma address. It's an address in which you are living. So if you are living in your, sister, in your girlfriend's sister's apartment or house, you're free to use. There will be a need for a letter. She's going to provide a letter, just like the one I told you about Airbnb. It's going to be a letter from this person, like, including her detailed identity information, like the Brazilian ID card, known as RG, her tax ID, her address, right? And this letter will need to be notarized by your girlfriend's sister, okay? But the bottom line is it needs to be an address in which you are actually living. And the whole point of providing the letter is that the federal police can find you if they need, right? So you cannot provide an address that is just pro forma, like to receive notices. And I know, you don't know because you don't have experience in the area. So yes, you could assume it is just for notice that would be sent through mail, but that's not the point. They want to know where you are. if you do something outside of the expected, they need to reach you. They need to be able to go and find you. All right. So that's the purpose of the letter that's going to be provided when you attend an interview with the Brazilian Federal Police. Osas is asking, can you travel to other countries while you're still on the 4-year temporary residency? Osas, of course, the whole purpose of the 4-year temporary residency, and I'm sure you're talking about the real estate investment route, is for you to be like a legal resident of Brazil. And as a legal resident, you're free to travel as much as you want. You want to travel 10 times, you're good. You want to travel 20, you're good. You want to travel 100 times a year, you're just fine. Okay, typically for the 4-year temporary residency, the requirement is going to be that you are in Brazil at least 14 days every couple of years, meaning you can, travel to Brazil 7 days a year, or you can, instead of going every year, you come like every other year and then you stay 14 days. All right, Osas, Rick Olive, I'm planning on relocating in Curitiba or Minas Gerais. I'm wondering to know if your firm will be able to assist with services such as going to federal police on arrival, visa renewal. So we assist people throughout the country, right? So we have clients in pretty much every single state. When you are in Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo and Brasilia, right, in which we have like our physical locations, we can go with you to the appointment. We don't go with you to an appointment in Curitiba or Minas Gerais, but we vet the document package ahead of time, right? That's the main point. Like when you go to the appointment, you don't know what to expect. So we tell you what to expect, and we tell you what to take with you to the appointment. All right. Interesting to note, Rick, that even with our advisory, sometimes there is some minor discrepancy in terms of the documents that we are presenting and what the police officer on the other side of the counter is asking you for, right? Like they have a discretion in terms of asking something. I would like to share, not just here, but maybe I should record a video just to address that, right? Like, I mean, for you to be polite, respectful. Sometimes, people try to be interesting by making jokes, and the police officer, they could not receive a joke, like thinking that you are making, not necessarily making fun of the police officer, but maybe taking the situation too lightly, and they see themselves as an authority, right? So you don't need to, you don't need to be afraid or anything, but I think, to be respectful, it does help a lot. And sometimes we have clients who face a challenge at Polícia Federal, and when they come back, we know the profile of the client, and we say, listen, no, it's not a surprise, right? Because sometimes the person, it is too aggressive, like in their communication, or, assuming that, immigration, it's a right, and they don't need to provide additional documents if asked. But many times, the reason why they are going to face a hard time at Polícia Federal is because how they are coming across, right? So I think I should record a video just to highlight that, right? Like if you are respectful, like you don't need to make jokes, you don't need to, say a few words in Portuguese, which it doesn't make much sense, to say bom dia, boa tarde, obrigado, right? Like, I mean, you don't speak Portuguese just because you're saying those few words, right? And sometimes the police officer, like he's listening, he sees this pattern, right? Like all day long, and he's tired, right? And sometimes you trigger the police officer. So my recommendation is be polite, answer the questions you asked, be pleasant, right? Like you don't need to be a different person, but just understand it, that you are asking for something to a person who has the power, to make your life miserable, right? So that goes a long way. I hope it makes sense. All right, Matt Gaines, boa tarde, Dr. Oliveira. Boa tarde, Matt. So good to see you over here. For the retirement visa, to show proof of income, U.S. government retiree, will monthly annuity statements suffice? Matt, it's not like, that's a good question. We never had a case in which the only source of retirement income was annuities, right? Like I think you have a very good shot. I would be very happy to file something based on annuities, right? Because annuities, particularly if they are perpetual, like those that you pay an amount and then you get a string of income every single month, I think they're pretty solid. I don't think you're going to have an issue. Now, the Brazilian immigration, for some reason, they are pretty attached, right? Narrow vision. They are pretty attached to Social Security, pension, and disability, right? Like whenever you come up with an application, these are the three things they are going to be looking for. Remember, if you are unable to reach the $2,000 a month, then you have the possibility of using like these other sources of income as long as they are not active, right? So in my example, Matt, let's say if you have 1,100 in Social Security, right? Super traditional retirement income. If you have the 1,100, the 900 you could meet, for instance, through a rental property. You could rent through annuities, zero problem with that. You could meet with a 401k, with a Roth IRA. You use whatever it's passive, and it should work. Okay. Now, the majority of the income should be traditional retirement income. Again, and by traditional retirement income, in our experience, okay, this is not written anywhere. There is no no regulation published out there that we can refer to. This is based on our experience through dozens and dozens and hundreds of retirement cases, right? They are looking for traditional retirement income, meaning Social Security, pension funds, and disability. Okay, now if you need to complement, then they become more flexible. They say, well, as long as most of your income is traditional, I'm gonna be willing to entertain something less traditional for that gap in qualifying income, if that makes sense. All right, Matt. Okay, OSAS, you charge a 5% fee over the cost of the poverty worth. Is there a separate charge for processing the fee? No, OSAS. And you know what I like to say, and that's not what I like to say. That's actually a policy here at the firm. We give you the immigration legwork for free, right? It's basically, just like, minor work when compared to the work that we do on the property, okay? Very important to emphasize that in Brazil, there is no title insurance, meaning that if you buy a property with a bad title from a bad seller, stuff that you can find during the due diligence stage, this thing could, come back and bite you in the neck. You could even, get this property taken from you, even after closing, even after paying the price, even after getting possession of the property. So super serious stuff. Another point of concern is the lack of escrow, traditional lack of escrow. There are some initiatives to develop escrow in the country, but sellers traditionally, they are not going to accept work. So we have about 300 activities that we handle here at the firm, to mitigate those issues and have the safest acquisition you can possibly think of, okay? And given this, amount of work, when I look at the immigration, I say, listen, you know what? We're going to give the immigration as a freebie. Okay, so that's how it works at the firm. You pay 5% for the real estate, and you know, just to highlight how it is just like I said. So if you buy a property for 1 million reais, we're going to charge 5%. You say, I don't want a visa, 5%. I want a visa, 5%. All right. So immigration work comes as a freebie just because of the massive work that we put into the real estate transaction. I hope that makes sense. All right. Okay. When I get temporary residency, can I use my cédula to travel to other Mercosur countries? Ken, that's an interesting question, and the answer typically is yes. Nowadays, if you go to Argentina, your CRNM card, right? You're calling cédula. That's a good name. Cédula means the card. Yes, you can basically go to Argentina using the card, and it wasn't always like that. Ken, such an interesting question. Back in 2003, I went to Argentina with my wife, and back then, guess what? We tried to do just that, right? Like we got our Brazilian IDs and we travel, and typically, you know, like across the border, they are not going to ask for a passport because there has been this kind of a standard in which they are not going to ask you for a passport. You can visit, you know, like the border cities freely and buy stuff. So, you know, like they have some leeway right there. But, you know, so we took a bus and we went to Buenos Aires, and, you know, like halfway there was a police check, and they asked us, right, like for our IDs. When we showed our Brazilian IDs, guess what they said? Well, you do need a passport, right? Do you have a passport? And I think we had left our passports, you know, in Brazil, like in another city that we were using as a base to visit different countries. And we had to go back, get our passports, and then go to Buenos Aires. But that was back in 2003. Right now we are 22 years down the line. And nowadays, you know, either the Brazilian ID card or the CRNM, which is the ID card for a foreign citizen legally living in Brazil, will work for you to be around in Mercosur. All right, Matt Gaines, my apology when I say monthly annuity, it is my monthly pension payment. The U.S. government calls it an annuity. It is a traditional retirement. Matt, 100% compliant, right? Anything coming from either a federal government, meaning the U.S. government, state level or municipal level, Brazil is going to receive, you know, with a smile on its face, right? Because its qualifying income is coming from a super reputable entity, right? So you're not going to have any problem at all, Matt. Thank you for sharing. Osas, do you have a video on the documents needed to apply for the Golden Visa? Yes, Osas. I think we have this video in the works with a list of documents. That's the 2026 version of our Golden Visa video. The one we have live right now, I think, is from 2023, if I'm not mistaken. We just recorded 2026 version, and in this video we do have the main documents that you're going to need, and this video is probably going to be launched by the end of the month. Like I recorded this video, it was last month, like has been probably a couple of weeks or 3 weeks. So interesting question, such a coincidence, right? And just keep an eye, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and you're gonna see this video going live probably by the end of this month. All right, Osas. Okay, let me see if we have anything else. Today is kind of slow, right? Today is kind of slow, but let me take a look. All right, I need another question from Osas, and that was helpful because I was forgetting about Remax. Thank you for the question, Osas. Do you assist in finding the property? So yes, we have a partnership with Remax. nomad states, right? Remax nomad states, they specialize in foreign citizens looking for properties in Brazil, super fluent in English. They can have, a really meaningful conversation with you. They understand the international standards, and whenever you say that you're coming from our channel, they understand they need to use like, stringent standards when picking properties, right? So they are going to weed out a bunch, right? Because not surprisingly, right, we just spoke about gatonete, about other crazy things in Brazil. And not surprisingly, you're going to find those crazy things when you are shopping around for a property. People selling, properties without a deed, people selling properties that they are going to inherit someday, right? And all type of crazy stuff. So when you reach out to Remax Nomad States, they are going to weed out those crazy type of properties, and they are going to get you a short list that's going to help you with the search. And then when you're working with them and with us, we kind of work as a team. We create WhatsApp groups so you can be, you can be updated on everything that is going on, right? And right now I'm going to share Remax ad. All right, that's the ad for our Remax partner. They are based physically in Rio de Janeiro, okay, but they are pretty nimble, and they work with like all the Brazilian states, right? Northeast to north, like center, west, and south of Brazil. There you have their contact information. So also, if you want to take a note, take a picture, take a screenshot, and you can reach out to them. Here at the firm, also, we have many clients who come, ready to buy a property, and they say, listen, I need to hire because I want to buy this property. And we have people who are planners as well, right? So very common for people to come to us in the same stage in which you are right now. You're typically planning for down the line. And when that's the case, we say, listen, take your time. You don't need to rush yourself. Find, a couple of properties you like, ideally 2 or 3. So from those 2 or 3, at least one can, pass the due diligence. But there you go. You could, take note of those points of contact. The first number is a WhatsApp number, right? So, in Brazil, I'm not sure if you know, but in Brazil, WhatsApp is huge, right? WhatsApp is owned by Facebook, but nobody uses WhatsApp in the US, or better saying, few people use WhatsApp. But in Brazil, it's all the rage. In Brazil, people don't call each other. They don't send text messages. The only thing that people use in Brazil for communication, it's WhatsApp, right? It's just unbelievable, the level of adoption of WhatsApp. Just to give you like a highlight, believe it or not, but even courthouses, they use WhatsApp for communication, right? So we have, probates across Brazil. Like we had an issue with a release of funds in a probate in the state of Goiás, and most of our communication with the courthouse was through WhatsApp, right? So if you call, nobody takes the call. If you send an email, maybe they're going to answer, maybe they will not. But if you send a WhatsApp message, guess what? They answer. So very interesting aspect of Brazilian society, the WhatsApp. And then there is the email as well. All right. So going back to our comments, we have a Mr. West Village. Welcome, West Village. Mensu. Also have a rental income and work contacts. Work from home, applying from Pakistan. Which visa is recommended? Visit or digital nomad? Mensur, right? That's a good question. So typically, right? Like typically what we see is difficult for us to give you a recommendation. Is too much of a responsibility, and we don't have enough, experience with clients from Pakistan to tell you, right? But for countries that face, difficulties in terms of getting, a visa to Brazil, which is the case of Pakistan, unfortunately. In my experience, I see people getting the visitor visa more easily, right? But trust me, you're gonna face, like an uphill battle when asking for a visitor visa for being a Pakistani, right? Very interesting. Brazil makes a lot of distinction in terms of your nationality, right? The standards, they are going to change dramatically. They are going to change substantially depending on your nationality. And, for Pakistani, people from Egypt, people from, India, people from, Middle East, it is just a battle to get a visa, right? We have a client. I'm just going to, share. I'm not going to share identifiable information, but, this guy, he works in the United Arab Emirates. He has a really high salary. He's working for the government for decades, literally. And believe it or not, this guy was refused. A visitor visa because of his nationality. It was just unbelievable, right? Because if the person doesn't have a job, or if the person has a job but it's not a really well-paid job, I don't know, the person is not like, it is a young person, I understand if the Brazilian consulate want to be overcautious, right? But this guy, he was just a blessing to Brazil, like to have this guy and his family as a visitor, and they denied the visa, all right? Just to give you an idea about how bad the situation is. Now, just to maybe, finish up my answer with a positive note, many times it's more a matter of planning, okay? Whenever you are attending an interview for the Brazilian visitor visa, they are going to want to see a pattern of international traveling, right? So let's say if you're from Pakistan, but you're traveling, to the United States, Canada, I don't know, China, Japan, a bunch of countries, they look at you and say, well, that's just natural that this guy is going to travel to Brazil. And of course, they're going to want to see like a stable financial situation, that you have a job, that you have something that is going to attract you back to Pakistan, that you're not going to stay in Brazil for good. That's the mindset, okay? And I'm not saying that this is right. I'm not saying that I approve. It's not my call. I'm just telling you how it is, okay? So if you don't have those circumstances, what you can do is to plan ahead of time and create the ideal profile to show in an interview with the Brazilian consulate or embassy in your area. All right, I hope that was helpful. All right, saving $65 in account will help. Digital nomad. Yeah, so for the digital nomad, you need just $18,000, like to satisfy the financial requirement. However, even if you have 65, that doesn't mean that they are going to approve you for the digital nomad. If they believe that you're going to come to Brazil and overstay the digital nomad, they are not going to give you the visa, even with a $65,000 in the account, unfortunately, okay? It is what it is. All right, let's take a look at something from our backlog. All right, what kinds of changes do you see for 2026 when it comes to immigration in Portugal, right? Like we know that now you're gonna need to wait 10 years for citizenship. What else is changing? All right, so that's a recurring topic in our consultations. Portugal and pretty much every single country in Europe, like they are reviewing or revising their immigration framework. And I think this is just a reality across the globe. Current immigration frameworks, they don't work anymore. Nowadays, it is so easy for people to travel around that, the old type of, immigration laws, they don't work anymore, right? So Portugal is trying to modernize its immigration law. And there are two major changes, right? The first change is just like this one that was mentioned. They are changing, they are increasing the number of years that you need to live legally in Portugal to secure citizenship. It is 5 years as of today, but for the newcomers, it is actually being increased. It was suggested 10 years, then went back to 7. I don't know how many years it's going to be. The last bill that passed Congress, guess what? It was struck down by the Portuguese Constitutional Court. So even if we have a new bill approved right now, nobody can tell that this is going to be the final state of the Portuguese immigration law, right? Like it's open for discussion, review by the Portuguese Constitutional Court, so nobody knows. Now, what's interesting is that like the typical Portuguese visas that we handle here at the firm, and we're talking about the D7, which is the passive income, the D8, which is the Portuguese digital nomad, golden visa, job seeker visa. They are being kept as is. Okay, there are no changes. They are targeting particularly immigrants from Portuguese-speaking countries, right? Like they are going to be immigrants from Portuguese-speaking countries. They are going to be either Brazilian, or they are going to be people from Africa or Asia, right? Like where you have a few countries that also have the Portuguese language as their official language. I'm going to give you just an example. Angola. Right, Angola has Portuguese as their official language, so people in Africa, they speak just Portuguese, right? In those countries, of course. And, so Portugal is trying to close the door because, not surprisingly, like there is a huge immigration movement from those less developed countries to Portugal, right? So, again, in the past, there would be a natural friction in terms of people moving to Portugal. Nowadays, everybody can travel, so it is just unfeasible for Portugal to absorb everyone who wants to go to Portugal. So Portugal is like, making it more difficult for people from Portuguese-speaking countries to go to Portugal. Another reason, Brazil, right? Even though Brazil is one of the 10 largest economies in the world, particularly if you go to big cities, you are always impressed with the level of development that you see in Brazil, but is still, like a far reality from Europe, right? Like because there is a lot of a discrepancy in income, so there is like violence, there is. Like there are the crime rings that I spoke at the beginning of this live stream. So Brazilians are immigrating in droves to Portugal, and they are about to take over. Okay, so for those of you who don't know Portugal nowadays, if you go to any business at all, right? Like half of the staff is gonna be Brazilian, right? So half, right? In some restaurants. Most of the staff is going to be Brazilian, okay? So it's just impressive. Like Brazil is taking over Portugal, believe it or not. So there is a reaction by the Portuguese people in order to reduce the inflow of Brazilians as well. All right. Matt Gaines, please like Dr. Oliveira's live stream. Thank you so much, Matt. Yes, if you're enjoying the live stream, make sure to like or share it with others. If you want to, see our newest videos that we are launching this month and next month. And by the way, we're going to have videos about Portugal as well. Make sure to subscribe and like our content. When you like our content, you help our business, right? And you help other people just like you to find this content. Really appreciate it, Matt. All right, let's see what else we have over here. Okay, it looks like it's going to be something from the backlog as well. Right. Okay, can I get your email address? I just have a question I need to send over. Yeah, so here at the firm, like the purpose of the live streams is typically to give you like this overview, to allow people to get knowledge about Brazil without necessarily committing to a service, right? But once you need like personal, individualized attention, then you need to schedule a consultation with us, right? We don't take questions by email. If you go by the books, right, like the Brazilian Bar Association doesn't allow us to answer questions. Now, if you just need like a general idea about fees, of course you are more than welcome to send us an email. I'm gonna write our email here in the chat window, and you are welcome to send a message. My suggestion is like if you have a case, if you have a need, you can write a short fact pattern, right? No more than 4 or 5 lines, and then we can take a look at it and maybe provide you with an estimate. We typically require clients to attend a consultation with us. The consultation is helpful not only for you to learn about the journey that you're going to go through, but it's also an opportunity for you and us to evaluate if we are a good match, right? Legal services, they are not like shelf products, right? Like, and some people, they assume it is, right? That just like you're going to a store and you buy something out of the shelf, and it's not the case. Legal services, they are very personal. There is an interaction between, people for a long time, right? For instance, if you're hiring us to assist you with a property purchase and application for the real estate investor visa, this could easily last a year of intense communication by you and us. So, nothing better than making sure that we are a good match before starting this journey, right? Like, we don't want you to be working with a provider you're not comfortable with. And in the same way, we want to work with clients who can get maximum benefit from this relationship without causing problems to our structure, if that makes sense, right? So it needs to be a good match for both sides, and the consultation, again, on top of bringing value to you by answering your questions and sharing our experience and strategy developed along decades of legal work. We also get to know each other and make sure we are on track for a successful journey, if you will. All right. Mr. West Village, boa tarde, Dr. Oliveira is Portugal new nationality law from 5 to 10 years official. I see online it says it is, others says it's not official. Do you think they will keep the 10 years? So, Mr. West, that's my take, right? It's not official yet because the Constitutional Court in Portugal, they may still struck down the law as it is. So I don't think it is official. If I had to guess, right, I would guess this would be increased from 5 to 7 or 8 years, but we don't know how this is going to play out. There is another component. There's going to be like the presidential election in Portugal soon, and not surprisingly, immigration is one of the central concerns, for Portuguese people voting for the federal government, right? Just like in the United States, right? Just like in the United States, in my opinion, right? In my humble opinion, what elected President Donald Trump, it was the immigration, it was like the open borders policy from the Biden administration, right? Like, listen, we work with immigration. We are all for immigration rights, but immigration rights, they are going to make sense only if the immigration framework is working, right? If the immigration framework is not respected, is not working, it makes zero sense for any law to be enacted and to be pursued, right? So that was the reason for President Donald Trump's win in the United States, and that's exactly what we see going on in Portugal, right? Like there is a candidate, again, from the right side of the aisle. His name is Andres, and he is the, not exactly Donald Trump, like he's not similar to Donald Trump in most of the different traits of personality that President Trump has. But he is saying, listen, we cannot continue as it is. We need to bring some rationality to immigration. And if we don't do something, Portugal is not going to survive as a country. Okay, so that's the whole discussion going on. And, we're going to see how this is going to play out. But in my opinion, Mr. West, things are not decided yet. There is still room for changes. They could, go back on an additional bill, and the new bill could be struck down just like it was by the Constitutional Court. All right. Mensor, sir, can you make assessment of my case and guide me case? I can pay your fee. You can help me getting digital nomad visa, taking my case from visa to family reunion and TRC to nationality. Mensor, listen, we are always, happy to assist new clients, but just highlighting, right? Just highlighting that we, most of our experience is with citizens from the United States and the UK, right? So we can share our limited experience with other nationalities with you, but I would just share that as a heads up, right? Because I don't want you to book a consultation and then be disappointed by what you're gonna hear from us. Like I said, it's an uphill battle. And if you want to schedule an appointment, go ahead. We're going to be glad to have a consultation with you, but just highlighting that this is not our specialty. Maybe we're not going to help as much as you would expect and deserve. All right. So this said, again, if you want to schedule an appointment, feel free to go ahead. All right, let's take a look. We are almost over, right? We just have a few minutes, maybe one more comment to be addressed here live. And good news for you, we have a live stream this Sunday, so make sure to have in your calendar, like on Sunday, Sunday is a much better time for most people, so that's why we are striving to have at least a couple of live streams per month on a Sunday, okay? Not every Sunday, just a couple of Sundays per month. So this Sunday is going to be our first live stream on a Sunday during the month of November. Make sure to show up. I want to say thank you for all of you who participated and shared such interesting comments. And going to the final one, Mr. West, thank you. Also, the Brazil Bar Association allows you to check on a lawyer's credential, see if they allow to practice law, and if there are any complaints against the law. Mr. West, I think we have, like, if you search in our website, we have a link. We have a link to the Federal Bar Association Brazil, in which you can basically just enter whatever information you have about the lawyer. And chances are this system is going to bring up the profile for the lawyer, right? And if you're going to hire a lawyer, you have discretion in terms of checking their credentials. Take a look at our website and see if you can find the link, right? Like I'm going to share with you, the name of the Brazilian Bar Association, OAB, is the Brazilian Bar Association. All right, so I just shared. If you want to search in our website for OAB checking, right? OAB checking. Hopefully, you're going to get to this page, and there is a link over there. You can click on it. I think there are even, steps that you could follow according to our guide to check on the attorney or law firm. All right, Mr. West, I hope that was helpful. Again, thanking all of you for your participation today. Remember to like our video, subscribe for the upcoming content, which is really nice. And I hope to see you on Sunday, and wishing you guys a blessed rest of your Wednesday. You take care.